Next, what are the student?
ম্যাম কথা কেটে কেটে আসতেছে, শোনা যায়
Can
না।
you hear me?
No,
তোমাদের কথাও আমি
ma'am.
শুনতে পাচ্ছি না, তোমাদের কথাটাও ক্লিয়ার না, কেটে কেটে আসতেছে।
ম্যাম আপনার কথা শোনা যাচ্ছে।
আচ্ছা, তাহলে তো হলোই। দেখো, মেজর অ্যানায়ন্স ইন ইসিএফ কি কি আছে দেখো, ক্লোরাইড অ্যান্ড বাইকার্বনেট। মেজর anions in intracellular fluid দেখো, phosphate, sulfate, protein. Why they are major in ECF? Because chloride and bicarbonate ion concentration is more in ECF than ICF. So major anions in ECF is chloride, bicarbonate, and major anions in ICF is potassium, sulfate, protein. Now another viva question: what are the major serum electrolytes? Serum means ECF. Serum is a part of ECF. And major means this electrolyte has key functions in our body, so they are called major. What are they? Major serum electrolyte means you have to tell only 4 names: sodium, potassium, chloride, and bicarbonate ion. And you have to know the normal value of these 4 electrolytes very well. This is a basic question, or if you don't answer this question, your viva will be very bad. So what are the normal values? Sodium normal value is 135 to 145 milliequivalent per liter or millimole per liter, as these electrolytes has one valency, so their 2 unit is same, milliequivalent per liter and millimole per liter same, but milliequivalent per liter is preferable. So concentration of sodium in serum is 135 to 145 milliequivalent per liter. Potassium is 3.5 to 5. Chloride 98 to 108, and bicarbonate ion 22 to 28 milliequivalent per liter. You have to know this value very well, because these are frequently asked question in your viva exam and also for written. What are the major serum electrolytes and what are their normal values or reference ranges? Okay. Sodium balance is already discussed in your last class. Today I will discuss what are the disorders of sodium balance, sodium homeostasis. Disorders of sodium homeostasis. There are 2 types of disorders of sodium homeostasis. One is hyponatremia, another is hypernatremia. All of you know what is the normal serum sodium concentration? Bolo to, what is the normal serum sodium concentration?
135 to
145 milliequivalent.
Milliequivalent per liter or millimole per liter. So hyponatremia means when serum sodium concentration is less than 135 millimole per liter or milliequivalent per liter, and hypernatremia means serum sodium concentration serum sodium concentration when more than 145 millimole per liter, that is called hypernatremia. So there are 2 types of disorders of sodium homeostasis. এখন আসো elaborate পড়ি। Hyponatremia, another terms is dysnatremia. Dys means dysfunction. So what is it? It is the clinical disorder with plasma sodium concentration less than 135 millimole per liter. And when it occurs, it is mostly occurs due to positive water balance or water excess condition rather than sodium deficit. Hypo means low. So hyponatremia শুনলে আমরা বুঝবো কি there are sodium deficit, but it mostly occurs due to water excess or positive water balance rather than sodium deficit. So hyponatremia usually means water retention. When water retention occurs in our body, hyponatremia develops. And it is frequently associated with hypoosmolarity, as sodium is an osmotically active substance. So when sodium is low in our blood, then hypoosmolarity develops. So it is frequently associated with hypoosmolarity, but not always. Another important question is, what are the common causes of hyponatremia? Definition and causes of hyponatremia. Very, very important question for your written and viva. So what are the causes of hyponatremia or sodium deficit? Sodium retention. Water retention occurs, but with relatively small sodium retention. What are the causes under this banner? Congestive cardiac failure, nephrotic syndrome, liver cirrhosis, kwashiorkor, that is one type of protein energy malnutrition, and renal disease. For example, chronic renal failure. Another cause is water retention alone. Water retention alone occurs in which disease? SIAD, that is syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion. Hypothyroidism, Addison's disease, psychogenic polydipsia. Psychogenic polydipsia means when a person intakes more than 10 liter water per day. Another cause is sodium loss with relatively smaller water loss. And it is found in renal and extrarenal salt and water loss. What are the causes? Diarrhea, vomiting, burn, sweating, osmotic diuresis, salt lossing, nephritis. So আমরা কি পড়লাম? Definition of hyponatremia, that is, it is the clinical disorder with plasma sodium concentration less than 135 millimole per liter. It occurs mostly due to water retention or positive water balance rather than sodium deficit or sodium loss. And it is frequently associated with hypoosmolarity, but not always. And these are the common causes. At first, the causes we divide into three categories. Number one category is water retention occurs with relatively small sodium retention. Causes are CCF, that is congestive cardiac failure, nephrotic syndrome, liver cirrhosis, kwashiorkor, renal disease. Another category is water retention alone. Causes are syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion, hypothyroidism, Addison's disease, psychogenic polydipsia. And psychogenic polydipsia means more than 10 liter water intake per day. Another cause is sodium loss with relatively smaller water loss. And it is found in renal and extrarenal salt and water loss. Examples are diarrhea, vomiting, burn, sweating, osmotic. Another question is, what are the clinical consequences of hyponatremia, or what are the clinical signs symptoms? Most of the clinical effects of hyponatremia occur due to cellular overhydration or cerebral edema. When sodium concentration is less in our blood, then what happens? Water enters into the cell and cellular overhydration or cerebral edema occurs. Most of the sign symptom occurs due to this cellular overhydration or cerebral edema. And sign symptom starts at serum sodium concentration less than 120 millimole per liter. What are the sign symptoms? Nausea, vomiting, headache, lethargy, malaise, etc. And when sodium concentration less than 110 millimole per liter, there are drowsiness, confusion, convulsion, stupor, coma, and even death occurs. So, sign symptoms are mainly due to cellular overhydration or cerebral edema. And sign symptoms start at sodium concentration less than 120 millimole per liter, and at concentration 120 millimole, less than 120 millimole per liter. What are the symptoms occurs? Nausea, headache, lethargy, malaise. And at less than 110 millimole per liter, there are drowsiness, confusion, convulsions, stupor, coma, and even death occurs. Acute development of hyponatremia, that means when sign symptom occurs within 2 days. And this is serious, and death occurs at serum sodium concentration less than 120 millimole per liter. Acute hyponatremia shows 50% of mortality, and chronic hyponatremia develops more than 3 days, by more than 3 days. And this is more tolerable in our body because it allows time for osmotic adjustment between neurons and their surrounding ECF. So patient may be conscious even at serum sodium concentration less than 100 millimole per liter. And mortality rate in chronic hyponatremia is 6%. So acute hyponatremia develops within 2 days, and chronic hyponatremia develops by more than 3 days. And chronic hyponatremia is more tolerable in our body, and patient may be conscious even at serum sodium concentration less than 100 millimole per liter. But acute hyponatremia is more serious, and death occurs at serum sodium concentration less than 120 millimole per liter. Now hypernatremia. This is also dysnatremia because there is abnormality or dysfunction in the serum sodium concentration. What is it? It is a clinical condition with plasma sodium concentration more than 145 millimole per liter. And when it occurs due to negative water balance or water loss rather than sodium excess. So hypernatremia usually means water deficit, as hypernatremia mostly occurs in water deficit condition. And it is always associated with hyperosmolarity because sodium is an osmotic elective substance. When sodium concentration is more in our blood, hyperosmolarity develops. So all causes of hypernatremia gives rise to hyperosmolar state. Now, what are the causes of hypernatremia? Main causes are due to water loss. So what are the causes of water loss from our body? Renal salt and water loss. For example, osmotic diuresis, salt lossing, nephritis, and extra-renal salt and water loss, that is diarrhea, vomiting, sweating, burn, intestinal fistula, and diabetes insipidus. And there are some water gain cause when here sodium gain cause. Here sodium gain exceeds water gain. What are the causes? Intravenous infusion of hypertonic saline, Cushing syndrome, Cone syndrome, seawater intake, etc. So main causes of hypernatremia are osmotic diuresis, salt lossing nephritis, diarrhea, vomiting, sweating, burn, intestinal fistula, diabetes insipidus, IV infusion of hypertonic saline, Cushing syndrome, seawater intake, etc. Now, what are the clinical consequences of hypernatremia? Clinical consequences of hypernatremia mainly occurs due to cellular dehydration or cerebral dehydration. When sodium concentration is more in the blood, what happens? Water comes out from the cell to the blood. And ultimately, cellular dehydration or cerebral dehydration occurs. And sign symptoms starts at sodium concentration more than 155 millimole per liter. What are the signs symptoms? Headache, lethargy, weakness, etc. And at serum sodium concentration more than 160 millimole per liter, usually there are drowsiness, confusion, convulsion, stupor, coma, death occurs. So signs symptoms of hypernatremia mainly occurs due to cellular dehydration or cerebral dehydration, and they starts at sodium concentration more than 155 millimole per liter. Mainly headache, lethargy, weakness occurs, and at serum sodium concentration more than 160 millimole per liter, usually drowsiness, confusion, convulsion, stupor, coma, death occurs. And also acute development of hypernatremia when occurs within 2 days, and this is more serious, and death occurs at serum sodium concentration more than 155 millimole per liter. And chronic development of hypernatremia when occurs by 3 or more days. This is more tolerable in our body because it allows time for osmotic adjustment between neurons and their surrounding ECF. So patients may be conscious even at serum sodium concentration 200 or more millimole per liter. So these are the disorders of sodium homeostasis. All of you understand up to this,
Yes, ma'am.
students?
Yes, ma'am.
So disorders of sodium homeostasis are two types, hyponatremia and hypernatremia. What is the, tell me, what is the normal serum sodium concentration?
135 to 145
milliequivalent per liter.
Milliequivalent per liter or millimole per liter. Two units are same because sodium has one valency. Sodium, okay? So hyponatremia is when less than 135 millimole per liter, and hypernatremia is when more than 145 millimole per liter. And you have to know what are the common causes and clinical consequences of these two disorders. Hyponatremia mainly occurs due to water excess or water retention, and hypernatremia mainly occurs due to water deficit condition. And what are the common causes of hyponatremia? Congestive cardiac failure, nephrotic syndrome, liver cirrhosis, kwashiorkor, some renal disease, hypothyroidism, Addison's disease, psychogenic polydipsia, etc. And what are the common causes of hypernatremia? Osmotic diuresis, salt losing nephritis, diarrhea, vomiting, burn, sweating, diabetes insipidus, Cushing syndrome, seawater intake, etc. আচ্ছা আমাকে এখন বলো তো আবার রিভাইজ দেই what is electrolyte or what do you mean by electrolyte?
Electrolytes are the substance that form
Electrolytes are the ions or
salts
salts when it is dissolved in
aqueous solution.
Always remember they are ions or charged particles when dissolved in aqueous solution, and their units are, what are their units?
Milliequivalent per liter.
Milliequivalent per liter. Another important question is, what are the major cations and anions in ECF and ICF? Major cations in ECF, what are the major cations in ECF?
sodium and potassium.
Potassium.
তোমাদের কথা শোনা যাচ্ছে না।
Sodium.
What are the major cations in
Sodium and
ECF?
potassium.
Sodium and potassium.
Cation means positively charged ion. Major cations in ECF is sodium and calcium. The major cations in ICF, that is intracellular fluid, is potassium and magnesium. See, the concentration of potassium and magnesium is more in ICF than ECF. So they are major in ICF, intracellular fluid.
Ma'am,
And what are the major anions in ECF and ICF? Anion means negatively charged ions or particles. Major anions in ECF is chloride and bicarbonate, and major anions in ICF is phosphate, sulfate, protein. Another very, very important question is, what are the major serum electrolytes? Major serum electrolytes, so all the concentrations are ECF concentration. Major serum electrolytes are sodium, potassium, chloride, and bicarbonate ion. 2 cation and 2 anion. All of you have to remember this. 2 cation and 2 anion, these are major serum electrolytes. Why they are called major? Because they have key functions or vital functions in our sodium is 135 to 145 milliequivalent per liter. Potassium is 3.5 to 5 milliequivalent per liter, and bicarbonate ion is 22 to 28 equivalent per liter. All of you have to remember these normal ranges or reference ranges very well, because the Viva question and also written exam. These are already discussed in your last class. Regulation of sodium balance, how occurs? Sodium balance or ECF same. What are the hormones regulating sodium? Very, very important question.
ম্যাম কি বের হয়ে গেছে?
কেন বলবো?
ECF এর মেজর ক্যাটায়ন সোডিয়াম আর পটাশিয়াম হবে না ম্যাম, সোডিয়াম আর ক্যালসিয়াম বললো কেন?
কেন বলবো মাহি? এত মনোযোগ দিয়ে কি হবে? ঘুমা যা।
ফুল টাইম ক্লাস করছো, হাই হাই হাই।
ব্রিলিয়েন্ট মাহি।
পড়াশোনা বাদ দিয়ে দিছি, ক্লাস থেকে করতেছি।
পড়াশোনা করতেছো?
তুমি কি সোডিয়াম পটাশিয়াম দিয়ে খেলতে আসছো পড়াশোনা বাদ দিয়ে?
একটু পর ম্যাম চলে আসবে, খুব ভালো হবে। এই দূরে যা সব।
পড়াশোনা করতেছ না, ক্লাস করতেছে।
এই সবগুলা ভাগ।
তোরা
তুই বিড়াল।
আসলো বইলা কি করতেছস? ক্লাস করতেছিস কি করো?
একটু গ্রুপে আয় মাহি, একটু গ্রুপে আয়, তারপরে দেখ।
সেদিন তোর নামে
পড়া শুরু করছো, এখন এগুলা করবেন না।
মাহি গ্রুপে গিয়ে প্ল্যানিংটা একটু দেখা